The freedoms Americans celebrate every 4th of July are not usually lost in dramatic fashion. More often, they are tested gradually through a series of individual decisions that, taken alone, appear defensible, but together suggest a changing relationship between citizens and the state. 2 incidents this week involving people from very different walks of life offer a striking illustration of this new trend. One involved Major Jason Watson, an active-duty Air Force officer who stood on the steps of the U.S. Capitol and called for the impeachment of the President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. The other involved David Hearn, a 3-time Olympic canoeist who now faces a felony indictment after being accused of damaging the newly renovated reflecting pool on the National Mall. Neither case is identical, but together they raise a broader question about how government power is being exercised in Trump's second presidency. Watson knowingly took an extraordinary risk, speaking while wearing his military uniform at a press conference organized by the Removal Coalition. He criticized the Trump regime's military actions abroad and its immigration policies, before arguing that both the president and vice president should be impeached and removed from office. Capitol Police arrested him after determining that he was demonstrating in a restricted area without a member of Congress present. Prosecutors later declined to pursue criminal charges, but that does not end the matter. As an active-duty officer, Watson may still face military discipline under rules that prohibit service members from engaging in partisan political activity while in uniform.
I am calling on average Americans everywhere to peacefully exercise your First Amendment rights en masse every day until this administration is removed and our democratic republic is restored. I believe in America. I believe in us. If just a nobody like me can take a stand for our Constitution and our democratic republic, then you can too. I hope you will join me in the defense of our republic.
The legal basis for the arrest was unrelated to the content of Watson's speech, but the images of a decorated military officer being handcuffed after publicly criticizing the commander-in-chief were nonetheless powerful. Watson accepted that speaking out might end his military career because he believed constitutional principles required him to do so.
For the past 18 months, we the people have allowed the highest levels of the executive branch of the federal government to violate our Constitution and their oaths to it with impunity. When the President of the United States orders military action against foreign countries, absent an emergency scenario where American interests are under imminent, dire threat, as was done with Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran, that's an unconstitutional usurpation of Congress's authority and a violation of the War Powers Clause. These violations resulted in the deaths of 13 service members and injuries of hundreds more. For this, the president and vice president must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
Listen!
When the President of the United States grants an unelected mega donor sweeping authority to shut down large swaths of our federal government, along with unrestricted access to our government databases, that's an unconstitutional circumvention of Congress's advise and consent authority under the Appointments Clause and Congress's power of the purse under the Appropriations Clause. These violations exposed every American's personal sensitive data to leaks and exploitation, illegally terminated tens of thousands of federal civil servants, and crippled support for Americans for medical care and disaster preparedness, and by far most tragically, resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of the world's most impoverished people with inhumanely abrupt cessation of U.S. aid. For this, the president and vice president must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
Another arrest generated a different kind of controversy. 67-year-old David Hearn had just completed a 52-mile bicycle ride before stopping to look at the reflecting pool outside the Lincoln Memorial. According to Hearn, he noticed that part of the blue liner installed during the recent $14.7 million renovation had already become detached. Curious, he reached into the water to touch it. Moments later, he was in handcuffs. What initially appeared to be a misdemeanor accusation has since escalated into a felony indictment alleging that Hearn maliciously damaged federal property. District of Columbia U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro said that Hearn ripped up recently installed sealant on the pool in a deliberate act that caused more than $1,000 in damage. She accused him of forcefully and violently pulling up bottom liner with both hands and acting belligerent towards an employee who told him to stop. This is a case with tremendous evidence, she said, adding that the authorities have made about 6 other misdemeanor arrests. The case carries political significance because the reflecting pool renovation, as we know, was one of Trump's personal projects ahead of America's 250th birthday celebrations. Trump promised that the pool would be restored to what he described as an American flag blue. Instead, algae quickly turned the water green, prompting public ridicule and scrutiny of the no-bid contract awarded to a company that Trump praised for previous work on swimming pools at his golf clubs. Rather than accept the possibility of construction defects, the Trump regime blamed sabotage. Trump himself claimed that vandals had cut a 300-foot gash through the new liner and promised photographic and video evidence. That evidence has not yet been released publicly. Hearn's lawyers insist he damaged nothing and accuse the administration of transforming an ordinary interaction with already damaged material into a politically convenient felony prosecution. Whether the evidence ultimately supports the charge is for a jury to decide, but the prosecution illustrates how quickly ordinary American citizens can become the focus of federal power when politically sensitive projects are involved. Viewed separately, each case has its own legal explanation. Capitol Police enforce demonstration rules. Military officers are subject to strict political restrictions. Prosecutors have the authority to pursue criminal damage to federal property when they believe evidence supports doing so. The question that should be asked is, why do people find themselves caught up in these situations? Why did an individual on a cycle ride think it was necessary to go check out the work that the commander-in-chief had been lying endlessly about on television? The concern lies not in any single decision, but in the cumulative pattern. Governments possess enormous legal authority, but democracies depend on exercising that authority with restraint and without creating the impression that criticism, embarrassment, or political inconvenience will be met with increasingly aggressive official responses. Perception matters almost as much as legal technicalities. When a military officer is arrested immediately after denouncing the president, and an Olympian faces a felony prosecution after becoming entangled in controversy surrounding one of Trump's showcase projects, many Americans inevitably wonder whether the government's response has become more punitive towards those who challenge or embarrass those in power. Just ask the families of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. History suggests that democratic freedom rarely disappears overnight. It erodes gradually as exceptional government actions become routine and citizens begin to question whether speaking out or simply finding themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time might carry consequences they never previously imagined. Major Watson may ultimately lose his military career. David Hearn may eventually be acquitted or convicted on the evidence presented in court. Their individual cases will reach their own conclusions, but neither should have happened in the first place. And together they tell a larger story about an America in which the boundary between legitimate law enforcement and the intimidating display of government power feels increasingly uncertain. That uncertainty is itself damaging. A free society depends not only on constitutional rights, but on the confidence that citizens can criticize their government, question those in power, and go about their ordinary lives without fearing that the machinery of the state will be turned against them. That confidence, more than any individual prosecution or arrest, is what appears increasingly under strain. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, on Global AF, on Legal AF, and on Sundays on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com, You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.